Holly Knight, what you have done with music is just, I mean, and you put it into words, because the rest of us, we sing your words. We live out your words, and now it's in book form.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Did you write music while you were putting this together? Because you seem to be the type of person where the music never shuts off.
It took me a couple of years to write this book. And truth be told, I actually had written probably twice what the book is. Like, if the book is 267 pages, I probably wrote double that. And then when my editor got involved, we started slicing and dicing, trimming off the fat. And so it was very much a full-time job. I always walk in my studio and I play every day. But I think I kind of, I've been doing that for so long that I just kind of put that to the side until I got toward the end of the book. And then I just launched back into a new record with a band that I'm producing named Le Crush.
So when you sit down with your editor, and I've had some entanglements with editors, because it's like you have to trust their vision, but at the same time, they're taking away so much of your art. Would you rather be with the editor or the engineer of making music?
Well, when you think of editing and engineering, I think of it as the one and the same.
Okay. Okay.
And I produce records, so I can sit down and do Pro Tools on my own. I don't need an engineer in the room. That's by design. I've always sort of been a geek when it comes to technological stuff, and I really sort of like to get into that. Like, I am very good at Pro Tools. I'm very good at Photoshop because I like to do photography. So, I figure the more tools I can put in my toolbox, the less I need them. And, I never like the idea of having someone else in the room when I'm writing except the writer. I don't like the idea of, some people I've seen, they have an engineer in the room and they have other people, and it's sort of like, it's weird. It's like someone watching you have sex in a way,
I'm with you on that, because I've used the term that when people step into my production area, I go, it's like you walked in on me and I'm in the bathroom. You would never walk in on me like that. I said, you've got to give me a heads up that you're coming into my space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because creativity is one of those things. I look at it as it's energy that's moving through you. And if you're not listening, it's going to move beyond you.
That's really well put. And you're right. It is energy that's running through you. I've always felt that songwriting is like that. I write about that in my book, The Warrior, the writing process. And, people have asked me my whole career, what's your process? And I don't really like to discuss it too much because it's intangible, and to put your finger on it, I feel like it's almost going to ruin it. But I do say in the book that if you've ever played the Ouija board, the Ouija game, it's sort of like, there's a planchette. It's this heart-shaped wooden thing, and you put your fingers on it, and then it's supposed to lead you in a direction. Now, we know that the players, everybody says, okay, they're really moving this around. But actually, I think it's a combination of both. I think there is a lot of energy, unspoken energy there. And it's kind of like that when I'm writing. It's like I put my hands on a guitar or keyboard, and I just let them lead me around. It's being pulled in some sort of direction. And that's about as close as I can get to describing it, because it's like you're on autopilot. You're in some other dimension. And, a lot of people have said, I'm not even responsible for that. It just ran right through me, and I was the catalyst. But I think it's actually a partnership. I think it's a partnership of who you are and what you bring and what your energy and style is, and then tapping into that sort of ether out there in the universe. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And one of the things that I've trusted with creativity is that basically you're here for a moment. And in that moment, what you put on paper or what you record into, I've got a writing instrument here that has a built-in recorder. And it's like you've got to preserve it because it really isn't for you. Someone else needs to pick it up, and they're going to be singing along with it.
Yeah, that's true.
So one of the things, Holly, that I love about this book is that I grew up in the age of radio, where when we did our ASCAP BMI reports and stuff like that, we had to put the songwriters' names on that paper. So much of that is lost today because the people that are on the air don't know the songwriters, and so a book like this really opens up the eyes and the heart of those that are in radio or television. Says, hey, look, something happens before they start singing it.
Yeah, well, even back then, I mean, now it's just ridiculous because you don't have like this wonderful thing that you can touch with your hands, which had liner notes and, all the people I used to be fascinated with the thank yous, I always wanted to read like who they knew and who were those people and who worked on the record, who engineered it, who did the artwork, the photography, I mean, it takes a village to make, not even a village, it takes a mass amount of energy and a large amount of people to make the artist look and sound good. And, again, I write about this in my book that they don't really want the public to know that they did not write the song. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they sort of intimate that they had a lot to do with it when they didn't. And it's, I mean, I hate to say it, and because I'm not a victim, and I live an incredibly successful lifestyle, but, it's just, after a while, it kind of like you kind of accept that no one's going to know you wrote that song, and it doesn't matter because and that people are enjoying it and loving it, But I talk a lot about that in my book. There's so many acts that I work with. I mean, people probably think that Tina Turner wrote the best.
Yep. Yep. I mean, you've let's talk about Tina Turner and the best and stuff, because we played it so much that our airwaves needed those songs. Do you ever sit back and think how much that you gave to radio? I mean, I realize the royalty fees and stuff like that, but still, if we didn't have you, Holly, we would not have had those ratings. We would not have been there during those promotions when Tina came to town.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. That's very generous of you to say that. I mean, you've made my day. I think MTV had a lot to do with that. And so the book is very centric on that. And in fact, all the original VJs wrote an amazing blurb. And I've become friends with all of them, except for JJ Jackson, who unfortunately passed away. It was just like the best thing that could have happened to me, because I had so many songs that would be out at one time. And I think that's why I ended up writing a book, because I wasn't going to write a book, and people would say to me, you worked with so many people and you got to know them, you dated some of them, you're still buddies with some of them. I mean, I'm still buddies with the guys in Kiss. We email each other. I just sent a copy of the book to Gene Simmons. And, it's nice after all these years to sort of look back and say, that really did happen to me. That wasn't somebody else that I'm writing about. That happened to me, and it makes me giggle a little, But I felt really blessed in a way that I got to work with some of the top artists, some of the biggest artists out there, and it's good to know that I made a mark, I mean, because it's centric on the MTV years, the fact that they validated it by saying MTV would not have been the same without Holly Knight. And I'm just paraphrasing in case it sounds conceited.
No, be proud of the moment, man. Own it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm going to own it. So I was badass. And I still am. I'm still, I never stopped writing after the 80s. It's just that I chose to write about that period because it's a love letter to the 80s for me. Yep. It was just a very fun, crazy. I mean, come on, the videos, some of them were so ridiculous. You had to love it. I mean, when I wrote Love is a Battlefield, I didn't think the video would end up with her being a hooker in a bar, Or when Obsession was filmed and you had like guys in togas walking around serving, or dervs around a swimming pool. I mean, who knew? They used to have cows walking through the set, So that's a charming time capsule that we don't really see that anymore. Things have become a lot darker and a lot more serious and a lot more processed and digital. Yep. And, it's not so much about the songs now, which I'm hoping that will change. I'm hoping that the next generation will kind of go backwards in that way and start thinking more about the songs,
The people that you've been with, because, I mean, with John Waite, Cheap Trick, and you mentioned the group Kiss, not even 10 feet from me is an original Oil from Paul Stanley, where I was standing next to him while we were talking about this painting. And the thing is that we get to see these people in the real light. When you create with them, my God, you're in an innocent state of mind. What is it like for you then to relinquish what came through you?
You mean the state of? I'm not sure what you're asking.
In other words, first of all, when a song comes to you, yeah, you're in that moment of now, but now you're going to pass it on to somebody who it's going to become a part of their image, their legacy. I mean, it's like, but we got to sit there and say, but it started at Holly, and that's what I think is unfair about music is that we forget about the songwriters.
I know we're always sort of at the bottom, the bottom end of things. I don't know why that is, but. It's the same thing with theater. I mean, when they do jukeboxes, they don't even mention the songwriters. They're not like, for instance, Tina Turner the musical won 11 Tonys, and not one of them went to a songwriter because I guess the songs weren't written for the musical. They were hits before, but still, a lot of work went into that to get that song written and out there. And I don't think the musical would have been the same without the best. So, the wig maker got an award and the set designer did, but not the songwriter. So you have to just it's like anything. I mean, how many jobs out there are thankless, and people don't thank you and you work your ass off, but you keep doing it because you're passionate about it and you have a lot of love for what you do. But it hasn't been all that bad either. I mean, I got inducted into the Songwriting Hall of Fame, and that was nice because that was a moment of recognition that I could never have dreamed of, and the year that I got inducted was great because it was Steven Tyler and Joe Perry. I mean, and Lou Gramm. I mean, these were all people I had hits with. So it was kind of like a rock and roll graduation ceremony or something.
Wow. You say passion. I say addiction. Which one is it? Because I mean, I have a podcast on iHeartRadio that's all about creativity is the addiction. I believe that we're addicted.
Oh God, it is so true. That's a great question because I can't help but be creative. I really got into photography later in life. I love making and creating things, not just songs. I can't help but do that. I can't even help looking at, like, if I'm driving in the country or driving around in like some city in Europe and I see buildings, it's like I'm already redecorating them in my mind or putting shutters on the building. And it's just this creativity means that you're creating something out of nothing, basically.
Yes. I love that feeling though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's spiritual,
Absolutely.
And it's soul deep.
Changing your name, how many people in your family did you upset? Because I had to go through that, and to this day, they're still very unforgiving. It's like, why did you have to do that? It's like, you know what? It's my journey.
It just didn't sound like a very rock and roll name to me, and I was in a band, and we were all at that time thinking, maybe I'll change now it's different. Now it's sort of like, with things being more diverse and stuff, you have some names that are very sort of ethnic and stuff. And I talk about in the book and really the whole process of how that happened, but it came to me in a dream. And I know that sounds cliche because I had been thinking of names and I couldn't. And then in the dream, I mean, my first name has always been Holly. I was born with that. Well, I wasn't born with that. It didn't come out with a card around my neck, but my mother named me Holly. Right, I came out with a cigar in my mouth and a newspaper in my hand, fedora. No, it just felt right. And the minute that I realized that my name was Holly Knight, I went and legally changed it, and I never looked back. And it sort of seemed to sort of cosmically, sort of without knowing it, fit my whole trajectory. I mean, I started writing songs like The Warrior, The Warrior's the Night. There were a lot of things that had to do with, the songs had to do with fighting, which I wasn't aware of until an interviewer said to me, a lot of your songs are about fighting. Tell us about that. And I said, well, they're not all about fighting. He said, no, it's compelling. It's cool. Like, but what's that about? I said, I don't know. And I went home and I looked at like The Warrior, Invincible, Better Be Good to Me. Just Love is a Battlefield. And I thought, this guy was right. How would I miss something so vital? So I realized that it was about fighting for something and not with people, So a lot of my songs are kind of passionate crusades, We will be invincible, and with the power of conviction, there is no sacrifice. I came from a very dramatic sort of New York Jewish home, and my family's, they're all divorced, and there's a lot of dysfunctionality and a lot of drama. So I like to put a lot of drama into my songs. I mean, they could be in movies, they could be mini movies.
Isn't that a form of defragging? And what I mean by that is that what we experience in the everyday life, we have to talk to our inner core, and from that inner person inside of us, here comes this art, and we release it in a way to where people, they either understand it or they have their own interpretation.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that you cannot, anytime you try to be contrived and you try too hard, it comes out sounding contrived,
Yep.
So you have to write what you know, and you have to keep it real. And you write about, when you keep it real, there are other people that are going to relate to that. We all basically go through the same emotions, whether it's falling in love, out of love, fighting for something, being pissed off at your boss or something. They're relatable. Mm-hmm. So you just keep it real,
I think music teachers across the country need to add this book to their curriculums. And the reason why is because there's a lot of songwriters sitting in bedrooms right now that are going through some tough times, Generation Zers and millennials and things, and they need to be shown the way that what they're feeling and what they're, and they need to hear these stories, because as radio jocks, we're not sharing these stories. So how do we inspire that next generation? We have to have books like this.
Well, thank you. I also, from time to time, I've taught master classes, and I love teaching. I love seeing the look on people's faces when they have a dream, and you can actually picture that it could become reality. And my book is dedicated. The dedication reads, "To anyone who ever had a dream and was told no," because that was me. And you just have to really, the naysayers have to be put behind you, and you have to just keep pushing forward if you have a dream. And dreams, it sounds cliche, but the dreams come true if you follow them, and mine did. I'm living proof, So thank you for saying that, because I do actually want to tour the music colleges and
God, that'd be so incredible.
Do some speaking.
Oh my God.
Because it's different. It's different to have a teacher who didn't really do much and then is teaching. It's different to have someone that went to the top of the mountain. And those are the people that you want to listen to. That's why when I had Mike Chapman as a mentor, he had produced so many #1 records, all the Blondie stuff and My Sharona and Hot Child in the City. And he was also a very successful songwriter. He wrote for Huey Lewis. Actually, he didn't write for them, but they cut Heart and Soul, which is like one of my favorite songs of the 80s. I love that song. So just look for the people that have done it. I mean, there's so many people out there now that call themselves influencers, and I'm not sure what they've done enough to be an influencer. For me, I want to hear from the people that actually did it, because that makes me realize that dreams come true.
Oh, you got to get into those schools, because when Marvin Hamlish came to my 7th grade music class, that changed me forever. I mean, forever.
Wow. Yeah, he's a big one.
Wow.
He's legendary.
Wow. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Holly. The door is always going to be open for you.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
I feel blessed that you've been here. What a great storyteller, and I just look forward to reading more and more and more about you.
Oh, well, I'd love to hear what you think about it, so let me know.
Absolutely. Be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you. You too.
You bet.
Everybody be brilliant.
I love it.